Today I'm in Austin, Texas, and I want to do something a little bit different than my previous vlogs. Occasionally I'll do a little product or a service review about something that I think is important about some of the things that I'm passionate about. So I'm passionate about travel, I'm passionate about minimalism, so I want to talk today about the best telephone and telephone service I think that you can have for nomadic living and travel. If you're traveling to lots of different countries, traveling around the world, just something that's highly efficient and very, very economical. So I want to talk about Google's Project Fi. That's Fi as in Wi-Fi, Project Fi. Now this is a beta test service and product available only in the United States. I should mention I'm not being paid by Google. I'm not getting any sort of kickbacks or endorsement. When I was researching for the best possible phone that I could get for travel, this is the phone I came up with. How this came about was about a year and 2 or 3 months ago. I think it was November, December, over a year ago. I had an iPhone 4 and the phone fell out of a locker and onto a tile floor and shattered and completely destroyed the phone, so much so I wasn't able to use it. So I went about 13, almost 14 months with no telephone, which I just took as a personal challenge. And part of that was when I was researching the replacement for my iPhone 4, I wanted to get the Google Project Fi, but I was traveling at the time. I spent 7 months in South America, followed by 8 months over in Europe. So I was gone for a total of 14 and a half, almost 15 months. And so I just wasn't back in the States to be able to get the phone. So I ordered the phone just before returning to the United States. It was here when I arrived back in Austin, Texas. And I've been using this phone for 2 months now. I just finally got my bill yesterday for my second month's usage. So I have some experience with it. I should mention that I'm not a crazy heavy phone user. That should be understood given I went over a year without using a phone. So I'm probably not the absolute best person to test the phone as far as functionality. However, speaking as a traveler and somebody that looks for certain features in a phone for travel, I think I'm an ideal person, actually probably a perfect person, because I traveled to 35 or 36 countries just in the last 14, 15 months, and 100 and some odd cities. So the problem when you have a phone for travel is typically you want to get the phone unlocked. That means you can put a different chip inside the phone and be able to activate service while you're traveling. For instance, you go to Guatemala and maybe your current provider, AT&T or Sprint or whatever, doesn't have service in Guatemala, or you don't want to pay for those rates. You want to swap in a different chip inside of your phone to get service in Guatemala. And you have to buy the chip for $10 or $15 or $20, whatever it might cost. And then you have to activate it and pay for the service. So every time you go to a new country, there's the potential that you have to get a new chip unless you buy one that's good for several countries, maybe Germany, France, and Spain, but it might not be good in Ukraine or Italy. So you're going to be buying lots of these chips as you travel. So a scenario like I just described, traveling for 14, 15 months to 30 plus countries, you're going to have to be buying lots of chips. Not ideal for me. The great thing about Google Fi, this is the Google Fi phone here, is that you can have one chip that is good in 135 countries just for the chip. But it's even better than that. This phone is designed, as the name implies, Google Fi, to run mostly off of Wi-Fi. You don't need the chip in the phone. You could remove the chip in the phone probably and use it. I don't know. I haven't tested that. But the phone is working primarily off of Wi-Fi. What's great about this is if you ever go outside those 135 countries, or if you're outside of a zone that actually gives you cell service to your chip, but you have Wi-Fi, you can still dial any landline, you can still text anyone, you can use your phone absolutely normally. People can dial your regular mobile phone number and it will ring and you have full normal use. This is different than using something like WhatsApp or Line, which is popular in South Korea and Taiwan and Asia, where you actually have to have an app to call somebody else who also has that app to be able to receive the call. That's a great technology. Google Fi is a little bit similar to that, but it's all built into the phone. So here's the nuts and bolts of it. The phone works primarily with Wi-Fi. So it's set up to look for free Wi-Fi zones and Wi-Fi zones that you've registered with a password. For instance, I'm at my friend Stan's house today. He has Wi-Fi. I have the password. Anytime I'm in the vicinity of the house, the phone is working 100% off of Wi-Fi. I go to Starbucks, it will give me a little activation thing saying, hey, you're in a Wi-Fi zone. Do you want to activate this? I say yes, and then it kicks into the Wi-Fi there at Starbucks. If you go to a grocery store and it maybe has a free guest access without one of those little click-in buttons, or a password registered place, your favorite restaurant, anything like that, a friend's house, it automatically switches to that. So you have full data speeds, you have perfectly crystal clear connections on your end anyway. Who knows about what's happening on the other end, the person receiving the phone, that's their own issue. But if you're dealing with somebody with a good quality connection on their end, it's crystal clear, it's really great. If you walk outside of the house, start driving down the street while you're talking on the phone, it automatically switches, just like switching from cell phone tower to cell phone tower if you're talking and going down the road. The benefits for me is 135 countries without buying a new chip, and that it works on Wi-Fi anywhere outside of those 135 countries and most of the time. So you're going to be using your data package and everything off of the Wi-Fi automatically. That's the default. I think that's fantastic because you get a way better connection. Okay, so there's 3 phones that are available. I bought the cheapest phone. This is a Nexus 5X. So Nexus 5X is the cheapest phone, and it's okay. For me, it's a huge upgrade from the iPhone 4. I'm not a huge fan of the larger type phones, but I think people like to have these big screens. I just don't like putting in this large of a phone in my pocket. It seems rather bulky, but that's just my own personal preference on phones. I'm not a phone person. I'm not a phone guy. I've seen Asians with these phablets that are even bigger than this. They're holding it up to their face and it's like the size of the side of their head. The Nexus 6P is the next phone up, and then the Pixel phone, which is Google's special custom built phone, which is about the same as an iPhone 7 as far as the feature list and the things that it can do, is a really high-end phone. So the phones start at $250, and then they go up to the Nexus 6P, which is $400. I'm looking at the website right now, and the Pixel, which is $650. That's if you're paying full price. They have monthly payment plans if you want to make payments. So how much is the service to keep the phone running? It's a no contract phone, so you can go month by month and discontinue at any time. I think that's really awesome. The way it's set up is a little bit unique in that you pay a basic service of $20 a month, or like $19.95, for unlimited talk, unlimited text. A lot of Americans are really concerned about having unlimited data. I really don't believe this, and I'm a bit of a minimalist in that unlimited data is really necessary. Google is set up to give you data that you pay for as you go. The default smallest is 1 gig, and it's $10 per gig. And it gives you a warning if you're getting close, like 80-90%, then you get a warning that you may need to increase and buy another $10 to get an extra gig. The cool thing about it is any data you don't use, you get a rebate for. My very first month, for the 30 days of the month, I used $2.40 of the data. It's 240 megabytes, I think, something like that. So I used $2.40 of the data, and I got a credit for $7 and whatever cents, and that was applied towards my next month's bill. So I only used $2.40 of the data. So I had $20 plus $2.40, $22.40 for the entire month for everything that I was doing. Again, I'm a light phone user, so that may not compare to you. The next month, and you can look back at my videos, I was driving all the way down to Florida through 4 national parks. I was using Google Maps on this phone plugged into the cigarette lighter of the box truck, and I was driving with Google Maps probably for 4 to 6 hours a day on active display, live feed of the data coming into the phone showing my navigation of my trip all day long. For the entire month, any day I was driving. During that month, I used about $8.50 worth of data. I didn't even reach the 1 gig. I'm very light on using other apps. I was doing some texting, telephone calls, maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 a week, not that much. I would talk maybe 40 minutes with my family on the weekends. So not really using the phone heavily those ways except for Google Maps. I don't know how much data it really takes. Obviously, for driving here to Florida and through 4 parks, that gives you an idea. I was using 80% of 1 gig of data for the month to do that trip, plus doing searches in each city looking for a Starbucks or looking for a Lowe's or a Cracker Barrel or a Walmart, place to sleep, looking for tire shops, things like that, mechanics. So relatively light use. Anyway, so when it's all said and done, do I like the service? Yes, I love the service. The Google Maps is great. The phone is an Android phone, and it works really great for me. It's been a pretty easy transition from iPhone. I'm an Apple lover. I love the Macintosh computers. I have the Macintosh laptop. I have an iPad. I had an iPhone. I switched to this because the iPhone really didn't have that same feature set that I needed for travel, and this was well worth it for me. On battery life, I think it's pretty much comparable to other phones. For me, in my use, if I'm not doing Google Maps and plugged into the car, I probably go 2.5 days before I need to plug in. But again, I'm fairly light use. If I'm using it with Google Maps, then it's probably 3.5, 4 hours before the battery's drained, mostly because you're using the screen and it's actively feeding the data down to keep everything live update. But I had it plugged in the entire time, so that was never really an issue for me. That's the conclusion of my review. So I think this is the best phone service for nomadic living, for international travel in a big way. It's fantastic. I think it's a great service, and I'm ecstatically happy with the service that I've had in the first 2 months. So I give it 2 thumbs up, 7 stars out of 7. It's just fabulous for me, and I highly recommend it if you're into travel. That's all I have for this episode. Savor the moment, be happy, pursue your passions. See you next episode.